Hello, are we on? Okay. So thank you everyone for joining. Our family feels the tremendous achdus and support from Jewish people all around the world, even though it's very difficult to accept that we lose somebody very precious to us. But she would have appreciated very much global achdus. If there was anybody who would appreciate Yidden coming together and doing mitzvahs in honor of people having a greater future, it would be her. And I'll give you a little taste of why. Every morning in davening, we talk about angels and Hashem Hakel HaMelech HaGadol HaGibur HaNeira. We start calling out to Hashem's names, Kel Elyon. We start accessing the deepest parts of who the Yidden are through angel experiences. But the thing is, the Kaddish Kaddish that we say, that the angels say, and the Baruch Kved Hashem Kaimei that we say, that the angels say, are really not starting today in the morning. They're starting at Maaseh Bereshis. Those are lines that were part of the creation of the world. And yet we say them every single day, and we connect it to Yotzer Or, to the ideas of renewed growth and renewed spirit. And the idea is that every day, even the angels themselves who have their lines and know what they're going to say, have to derive inspiration from somewhere else in order to be fulfilled and in order to find themselves, to find their truest voice and their highest voice. In other words, even angels, a one-dimensional being that is not looking to grow, every single solitary day has to find a source of inspiration. Otherwise, their voice is not heard. Otherwise, it does not ring true to all Olamis. Every day when I say Kriya Shema, I think about who in my life can I get inspiration from? Where am I capable of finding that type of inspiration, that today is going to be a renewed day? And one of the great sources that I had almost every single day for the last 2 years was Raizel. Raizel was somebody who, growing up, no matter what happened, there was always someone at the door who did not look like she belonged in any group in our house. And we always knew that was another person Raizel met and decided she needed to be friends with and bring her into the fold. And she brought great inspiration to so many people by always bringing people in. But I had forgotten about these stories because unfortunately she wasn't well and I was living far away. And then just about a year ago, I had my son's bar mitzvah here in California. And we were lucky enough that Raizel was able to come out with her family. And a couple of days ago, I got a shiva call from a woman who was at the bar mitzvah. And she told me how, of course, she wasn't going to miss my son's bar mitzvah, but that morning she woke up not feeling well and was very sad. So she put on her best makeup and her best face and came to the bar mitzvah. And of course, when I greeted her with my wife and my son at the door, we just gave her the most incredible amount of love and did not notice that anything was wrong with her. And she tells me just 2 days ago, she says, I was sitting in the room amongst your big simcha, and all of a sudden your sister sits down next to me and says, are you doing okay? How are you? What's going on? Can I help you? And she said, in all the confusion, I realized, wait, this is Peretz's sister who's not doing well. And she found me in this room filled with people, joyous and happy, and kind of saw on my face that I wasn't doing as well as I could be, and made the time to not only lift me up, but totally bring me to the spirit of the simcha. This is the type of person Raizel was. She wasn't just waiting for inspiration to hit her. She was looking for it every single day. She looked around her environment and said, who can I give a little more love to? Who can I add value to? Who can I share something that inspires me? She was somebody who fed off radical positivity and inspiration. So when you put these two together, you put these ideas of you have a daily opportunity every morning to daven and to look for sources of inspiration in your life. Then when you get to Yishma Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, now you're full of what Echad is. You're able to see that Echad and inspiration are the same thing. It means that within everything that you're experiencing in your life, everything that you're dealing with, you're able to tap into pulsating godliness, the energy that's available to you. And Raizel was an example for that. And it is befitting to learn Torah in her honor and to be inspired in her honor and to be excited by what you learn, to be inspired from it to add to your day. So I want to thank Rabbi Jacobson for coming on and starting a class in her honor, and everybody else who contributed and was a part of that, and sending Nicham Abelim our family feels that that was the truest spirit to what Raizel was looking out and calling out and connecting to others and trying to bring inspiration and joy and love to other people's sorrows and misfortune. So may we merit the ultimate dream and the ultimate inspiration of consistent energy tapping into, let's just call that Moshiach, for lack of a better term, of always being able to get into the Eibishter, bring it into your life and being inspired by it. And I look forward to learning now in her honor. Thank you, Rabbi Jacobson.
Everybody can hear me? You can hear me? Let's see. Maybe somebody could tell me if you can hear me.
Tell me, hear you.
Hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Reperetz. Welcome to everybody who's joining us, the hundreds of people who are joining us here from near and far for the special inaugural Shiur class lecture in the loving memory of the unforgettable and beloved Raizel, Taiba Raizel, Bas Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, Le'elu Nishmas, this extraordinary person who was taken from us just a few days ago. This is the week of Shiva for Raizel Zucker, Mimochkin, who battled terrible cancer and returned her soul to her maker just a few days ago at the young age of 39, leaving grieving husband, a dear student of mine, Chazan Shalombert Zucker, and 8 young children from the ages of 2 to bar mitzvah. Her parents and her siblings, her relatives, her family, and so many close friends whose lives she enriched and whose lives she enhanced, first and foremost through her extraordinary nobility, radiance, optimism, hope, and confidence. Even just a very short time ago, as things began to deteriorate, this young, extraordinary person, mother, wife, an individual, was filled with an inner simchas hachayim, an inner extraordinary joy of life. She was a beautiful person, inside and outside. I had the privilege of knowing her somewhat, and the brightness that she brought to every situation is an incredible, incredible lesson. So her close friends decided to begin this inaugural weekly class of Jews from different walks of life and different parts of the world coming together to learn, to grow, to strengthen each other, to bring more light into the world as a way of connecting to her soul and bringing light to her neshama, to her soul. I was asked, and I'm privileged to be giving the inaugural class, the first one. It will continue, God willing, in subsequent weeks with other great teachers and mentors and lecturers. Let me share the structure. I'm going to share some ideas, some thoughts, and then we're going to open up the floor to questions, to dialogue. You can ask your questions different ways. If you're on our Zoom chat, you can chat your question and I will go through the questions. If you're joining us via the yeshiva.net, you go to the homepage and you'll see the lecture in memory of Raizel Zucker, and you click on it and you'll see ask your question, and you can put in your question as well. So you have 2 methods to ask questions. You don't have to write your question in both of them. we will, God willing, take as many questions as we can. It's a very hard week. It's a very hard week for Raizel's friends, and never mind for Raizel's family. This is a terrible, terrible loss. I mean, we're dealing here with a person who was 39 years old and a large family of 8 amazing and special children. They were living in Israel, and due to her illness, the family uprooted itself from the Holy Land and came to the United States of America, relocated here recently to Muncie, to my neck of the woods. And this has been a excruciatingly painful journey for her and for her loved ones. And this past week, she said goodbye to the world, and many a tear has been shed. I want to emphasize, I think, one important point, but it's sometimes overlooked. And that is, one might think logically that when a soul leaves the world, it's just disconnected. The body is interred into the earth, and the soul goes back to its spiritual source. And yet, it's actually a revolutionary idea in Judaism that when I or you, sitting in this world, on our planet, in my home, in your home, and I learn Torah in memory of this soul, I learn Mishnayos for this neshama, I give tzedakah, I give charity for this neshama, I do a mitzvah for this neshama, I say a prayer for this soul, I do a good deed for this soul, I bring in light into the world for this neshama, I say kaddish for the neshama, or whatever the method is, it actually has a tremendous impact on the soul. You would think, how does that exactly happen? I'm sitting here in my room and I'm learning something. I'm learning a Mishnah, or I'm learning something else of Torah, or I'm helping somebody, or I'm giving charity, I'm saying Kaddish, I'm saying a Tefillah, I'm saying a Kapitel Tehillim for this neshama. What's the connection? And yet, in the intricate web and interconnectedness of all of humanity with our source, in the intricate unity between heaven and earth, both vertically and horizontally, these relationships are very profound. And a person, even a stranger, never mind a family member or a friend, does something for a neshama, it literally impacts, transforms, elevates, inspires, helps the soul wherever it is. Just like I can help you in this world, I could connect to you, I can support you, I can be here for you physically, financially, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and you can be here for me. In a similar vein, that connectedness does not cease even if we fail to be able to see it or sense it with one of our 5 senses. And that's the impact that every person can have on a neshama, giving it nachas, giving it delight, giving it joy, giving it pleasure, giving it love, sending our connection, our affection to that soul. And it works both ways. It's a 2-way street. That soul sends its love and its energy and its brightness down here to earth. And in the case of Raizel Zucker, Zechroina Levracha, Toiber Raizel Bas Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, we know how much light she shed and she radiated through her 39 short years. That light doesn't die. That light continues to live. It continues to live by the impact of her soul on our world. It continues to live in the lives and in the hearts of each one of her 8 children. It continues to live in the life of her husband. It continues to live in the life of her parents, in the life of her brothers, in the life of her sisters, many of them who I know very well, very, very special people. And it continues to live in the lives of her friends. Let me share with you a story, my dearest friends, a story that I think is extremely relevant to this evening, about a Jew who once came to the Kloisenberger Rebbe. The Kloisenberger Rebbe was a Jew named Rabbi Yekusiel Yehuda Halberstam, Zecher Tzadik Levracha. He was one of the great Hasidic masters of the previous generation. He passed away Tammuz, I think it was Tes Tammuz Tovshin Nun Daled, the 9th of Tammuz, if I'm not mistaken, 1994. The Kloisenberger Rebbe lost a wife and 11 children in Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp. He himself was at the verge of death not once, but numerous times. He survived. The Kloisenberger Rebbe rebuilt his life. He remarried. He had children. The two present Kloisenberger Rebbes today, one in Borough Park, one in Kiryat Sanz in Netanya in Israel, are children of his from his second marriage, post-Holocaust marriage. But he used to speak a lot about his experiences and his memories. Many survivors did not speak, but he spoke. A Jew once came to him, and a Jew asked him, "How did you continue living in the face of such adversity, in the face of such profound agony, pain, suffering, unfathomable tragedies that befell you?" We don't have the words, we don't have the quill, the pen to capture what a person like the Kloisenberger Rebbe and so many other Jews endured. I mean, you think about it, it's surreal. It's still hard to believe today, 75 years later, 80 years later. In one day, a wife and 11 children to the gas chambers. How do you go on? He asked him, how do you go on? And he was a motivated person. He didn't just go on in despair. He built a beautiful community. He built a beautiful family. He built the famed Laniado Hospital in Netanya. He built the famous Mifal Hashas. He was a mentor to hundreds, to thousands. He was a teacher. He was a Rebbe. He was a tzaddik. He said, how? To be a leader, you have to be enthusiastic. You have to be inspired to inspire others. You have to be inspired yourself. You can't fake it. You can't fake it for too long. So he asks him, he says, Kloisenberger Rebbe, it sounds Kloisenberger Rebbe, tell me how you did it. Kloisenberger Rebbe looked at him and he said two words. He had this extraordinary accent. B'domayich chayi. B'domayich chayi. Which is a quote from Ezekiel. Yecheskel, I think it's chapter 16 or 17. We say it in the Haggadah, the night of Pesach. And it basically describes the night before the exodus of Egypt. The Jewish people are compared to a fetus which is just emerging from the mother's womb. It's without clothes, va'at erim ve'eria. It's bedecked in blood. It just emerged. It still has to be cleaned up, the umbilical cord cut, and ultimately mature and develop. But that's the night, the moment of Exodus when the Jewish people are being extricated from the womb of their tyrants. In exile, it's like a state of pregnancy, and now they are emerging, emerging into a new identity, a new people, a new nation. And the prophet Yecheskel says, I said to you, in your blood you shall live. In your blood you shall live. The sages associate this with the fact that the Jewish people that night offered the Passover offering and they sprinkled its blood on the doors of their home. That was one form of blood. They also circumcised themselves. They went through a bris. That was another form of blood. And through this blood you shall live. But the Kloisenberger Rebbe didn't give this long explanation. He just said two words, B'damayich chayi. This Jew, his visitor, naturally thought that the Kloisenberger Rebbe was sharing with him the following insight. And the insight was that the Jewish people do not allow the blood that they observe to destroy them. Rather, for them, the blood and the sacrifices that they make become an impetus for a new birth, for a new redemption, for a new reality. They don't see their blood being spilled as just a vain experience with no meaning, with no hope, with no purpose, with no significance. Thank you. And therefore, they don't allow themselves to go into despair. And despite the pain, and despite the suffering, and despite the bloodshed, they lift themselves up and they say, "B'damai chayi." For me, this is a calling for renewed life, for renewed vigor, for deeper resilience, for deeper courage, for deeper faith, for deeper commitment. This is how he understood what the Kloisenberger Rebbe meant, "B'damai chayi," that he did not allow the tragedies that he experienced and observed to kill him, to destroy him, so that his blood would also be shed, if not physically, emotionally. No, for him it was a call to rebirth, a call to rejuvenation, reinvigoration, to reinvent himself and his family and the Jewish people. This is how the person understood. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe asked him, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" He said, "Yeah. B'damai chayi, you're telling me that the blood that the Jewish people saw is an impetus and a catalyst and a springboard for new life, for new vigor." He said, no, that's not what I meant. He said, "What did you mean?" The Kloisenberger Rebbe told him something incredibly, incredibly profound and moving. He said, "B'damai chayi," I'm referring to something else completely. Referring to a scene in Leviticus, Parshas Shmini. It's the first day of the month of Nisan. The tabernacle, the sanctuary, has been inaugurated for the first time, Chanukas HaMishkan. The divine presence at last has descended among the Jewish people. It was a moment of extraordinary ecstasy, joy, and sanctity. And then tragedy struck. The two oldest sons of Aaron, the high priest, Nadav and Avihu, died. Talk about an experience that smacks one in the face of such joy. This was Aaron's greatest day. He was the high priest, and suddenly he lost two children. Moshe tried to comfort him. His brother Moshe, the uncle of these boys, the uncle of Nadav and Avihu, comforts him. And he says to him, "Hu asher diber Hashem loymar b'krevei HaKadosh." What you have seen now is basically a manifestation of the words that God said, "I will become sanctified through my closest ones." As Rashi says, Moshe said, "I thought it was you or me. Now I see that they are greater than you and even greater than me." Well, he didn't say even, they're greater than you and they're greater than me. This is what he tells his brother. And you know what Aaron says? Aaron doesn't say thank you. You know what Aaron does? Two words. Vayidoim Aaron. Aaron was silent. He was quiet. He was mute. He didn't say a word. Did he agree with Moshe? Did he disagree with Moshe? Later, there's an argument between him and Moshe. There's a disagreement about the burning of a certain goat. Moshe said you shouldn't. Aaron felt you should. Moshe said. Here he doesn't argue with him. He doesn't agree with him. Did Moshe comfort him? Were Moshe's words meaningful to him? Moshe and Aaron were very close. They were tight brothers, two prophets. Two words, Vayidoim Aaron. Aaron was quiet. He was quiet. What type of silence was this? Was this a silence of submission? Was it a silence of, there were no words. The pain was so profound, he couldn't say anything. Was it a different type of silence? The Kloisenberger Rebbe says, B'damayich chayi. B'damayich comes from the word vayidoim. Vayidoim Aaron means Aaron was silent. B'damayich chayi means you shall live through your silence. That's how I continue to live. I continue to live through my silence. B'damayich chayi. Jew knows that some experiences in life, you cannot wrap your brains around them. They are too gigantic. They are too painful. They are too devastating to be able to try to assimilate them into your intellectual faculties, to try to make sense out of them, to try to make yourself feel comfortable. Jews have cultivated the ability for vayidim, for silence. Silence doesn't mean I don't care. Silence means that I respect the magnitude of the mystery. Silent means that I realize that I am in the presence of something that completely transcends my faculties. Silence means the recognition that I am vulnerable and humble in the presence of a story that started far before me and will end long after me, one that transcends my finite perspective and vision of reality. Silence is the ability of the Jewish people to remain fully present in life, fully involved in life, to have the ability to continue to laugh and to cry, to dance and to grieve, to celebrate and to suck the marrow out of life without running away, without detaching. Not because I don't feel the pain, not because I understand why, not because I have rationalizations and justifications and explanations, but vayidoim aron bidamayich, because a Jew knows how to cultivate the art of silence. Silence means the recognition that life is a mystery, death is a mystery, and a finite brain simply does not have the tools to contain infinity. I look at it, I know that there's meaning. I know that there's purpose. I know that I'm not a random mutation. And I know that the world was conceived in love, and that love is the consciousness that vibrates through existence. It's the fuel of existence. But I still cannot make peace with it. And therefore, I'm silent in the presence of such magnitude, of such infinity. Bidamayich chayi. Somebody once asked another Holocaust survivor, I had the privilege of knowing, Professor Eli Raizel. Eli Wiesel. Eli Wiesel was a close friend of my father, Zechron Levracha. And somebody once asked Dr. Raizel, he said, is there a tradition of silence in Judaism? And Eli Wiesel responded, yes, there is a tradition of silence in Judaism, but we don't talk about it. What a profound answer. This is what the Kloisenberger Rebbe was telling this Jew. Bidamayich chayi. Aaron's silence allowed him to continue to function, to continue to be positive, to continue his mission. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe turns to this Jew and says, you asked me how we rebuilt our lives. The answer is bidamayich chayi, bidamayich chayi. With the damayich, with the vayidim, with the silence of Aaron, with silence we continue to have a life. There are no answers. There are no solutions to devastation. There are no easy, comfortable ways of making peace with unthinkable tragedy. We cannot. We don't understand. We cannot understand. Perhaps we don't even want to understand, because our job is not to understand the reason for pain. Our job is to protest pain. Our job is to heal the world from pain. Our job is to pray for the day when pain will be eliminated, not to make peace with people's pain. It is a wrong attitude to try to get caught up in the need to understand, to make sense. We don't try to understand, rather we focus, what do I need to do now? What is my mission? It's this silence that allows me to be present and to be positive, to be upbeat, to have faith and to move on in life, For some, it's the silence of submission. For others, it's a silence that includes a lot of questions. For others, it's a silence of protest. This experience, too, is one that is extremely painful. Now, many people have experienced pain in the last few months. This coronavirus pandemic has claimed the lives of so many precious, precious people in our community. So many people you know, so many people I know, relatives, friends, mentors. And every tragedy leaves a void that is very profound. But Raizel's death created a sadness all its own. Her age, her family, her young children, the grief is very profound. And when the wound is so fresh, it behooves us to remember, B'damayich chayi. We live with the B'damayich of Vayidoim Aaron, of Aaron's silence. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Silence sometimes is the deepest strength. Siagla chachma shtika. The Pirkei Avos says the fence, the crown around wisdom is silence. And the great masters explained that silence is sometimes far deeper than any wisdom. You know why? Because wisdom grasps what you know, and silence allows you to touch the unknowable. Knowledge, wisdom, perception allows me to experience that which I know. But how much do I know? How much can I understand? Silence gives me access to the infinite mystery of life, gives me access to the unknowable. Little story, beautiful story. Such a geschmack amaisa. I have to tell you, I didn't see this story in Chabad sources. I saw this story in non-Chabad sources about the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya Rebbe, Shnei Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad. The story goes like this. There was a wedding of a relative of the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya. And as often in Jewish weddings, they invited a Batchen. It was a famous Batchen, great comedian. Or then he wasn't really called a comedian, but a sharp Jew who had a gift of gab and knew how to compose great prose and songs in order to bring joy to the groom and the bride and the families and the dancing. And he was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, and he was brought into the wedding to do bat chonos. Now, here's a problem. To stand in front of the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, and say jokes or share your brilliance was it would be very awkward for anybody, never mind for a follower, for a student who had some appreciation of in whose presence he is. So what did he do? He took a little extra l'chaim in order to inebriate himself a little bit, to become a little tipsy, Purim dik, so he should be able to joke around uninhibitedly. And he starts off, and he looks at the Alter Rebbe, and this is how the Bat Chonos, this is how his so-called jokes at the end of the wedding, this is how they developed, this is how he began. He said, Rebbe, I decided today that there's no big difference between you and me. We're more or less in the same boat. People were shocked. A chassid gets up and says there's no difference between you and me. The Alter Rebbe, you have to understand, was one of the greatest minds in Jewish history. One of the greatest authorities in the world of halacha and in the world of Kabbalah and in the world of Jewish philosophy, dealing with an incredible mind. Rabbi Yashaber Soloveitchik once said, and he comes from the real Lithuanian stock, from the family of Reb Chaim Volozhiner. Chaim Volozhiner was the famous student of the Vilna Gaon. Rabbi Soloveitchik once said in Boston in 1969 that since the Rambam, there was no Ish HaSeichel, there was no man of such towering intellect who embodied such intellect like the Alter Rebbe, like the Balatanya. However you want to explain it, I'm quoting Rabbi Soloveitchik. I heard it on tape. In any case, he tells the Alter Rebbe at the wedding, I decided there's no big difference between you and I. I'll say it in Yiddish and then I'll translate. He said, Das, was ihr weiß nicht, weiß ich euch nicht. Das, was ich weiß, wisst ihr euch. So da a paar Sachen, was weist und ich weiß nicht. Aber was ist der Erech von dem, was weist, legabe dem, was weist nicht? He said, Rebbe, I decided there's no great disparity between you, and I'll tell you why. Whatever I know, you know. Okay. Whatever you don't know, I also don't know. So what's the difference? What I know, you know. What you don't know, I also don't know. So what's the difference? The difference is there's a couple of things, or maybe more than a couple of things, that you know and I don't know. Granted. But now I ask you, Rebbe, how do you compare that which you do know relative to that which you don't know? And tears came down from the Alter Rebbe's eyes. How do you compare that which you know relative to that which you don't know? So you see, my friends, words, ideas are amazing. They allow us a glimpse into that which we know, into that which we may not know which we may not know today, but we'll know tomorrow, or that which we can at least access on some level. It beacons to us even a little glimmer of it. Silence. Vayidoim b'damayich. Silence. Faith allows us to touch that which we don't know. Allows us to touch infinity. It doesn't make us naive. It doesn't make us oblivious. It doesn't make us deaf to the realities that we experience. It just allows us to appreciate and experience and touch the truth that life is infinitely larger than that which I will ever be able to contain in the 2 or 3 pounds jello, this 2 or 3 pound jello called my brain. As brilliant as a brain is, it's a creation by God, and the finite creation cannot really grasp the infinite creator. And now, I want to share with you a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Shavuos is coming. The Baal Shem Tov's yahrzeit is on Shavuos. Baal Shem Tov passed away. Shavuos Tov Kuf Chaf. Shavuos 1760. I read this teaching on Shabbos morning. Before davening, we daven at home. Before davening, I was learning some of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings in his Sefer Keser Shem Tov. And I came across this teaching, and I'm going to learn it with you. I want to share it with you. It meant so much to me. And just due to a technical challenge, I didn't have a chance to post it before the class. But God willing, when I finish, I will find it on the net, on the internet, and post it on this class. So if you want to see it inside, it's Keser Shem Tov, section 6, Siman Vav. If you go to theyeshiva.net, where this lecture is presently playing, in addition to Zoom, there will be a PDF or a source sheet near the video, and you'll be able to study it inside. I chose this teaching because I recently learned it, because it's from the Baal Shem Tov and Shavuos is coming, and also because it relates to the story of Moshe's interaction with the Jewish people following Matan Torah. So the Baal Shem Tov says, and I'm going to read inside, it's a short piece, and I'm going to explain. V'hadavar asher yikshe mikem takrivun elai. So Pasuk in Dvarim, Perek Aleph Pasuk Yud Zayin, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people, remember, he delegates, he appoints officials and ministers and mentors and leaders to be able to help the Jews with their issues and conflicts and dilemmas. But he said, something that is too difficult for you, something that is too hard for you, bring to me, bring it to me, and I'll try to help and solve the problem. The Baal Shem Tov said in the name of the Ramban, this is Keser Shem Tov Siman Vav, the source of it is Ben Peiris Yosef in the introduction. Ben Peiris Yosef, which records many teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, in the introduction, he brings this Baal Shem Tov in the name of the Ramban. Ramban is Nachmanides, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, who lived in Spain in the 13th century, was one of the great Jewish leaders, halachicists, philosophers, biblical commentators, Talmudists, physicians of the time. So the Baal Shem Tov said in the name of the Ramban, Shetziva Libnai, the Ramban told his son, if you stop, לכאן ולכאן, או שיש לך ספק אם הוא מצווה אליו, אם יש לעשות למנוע ממנו, והדובר שיש לאדם הנוע ממנו יכוון למצוא ראיה להתיר האיסור, על כן אז תראה קודם כל לסלק מעסק דבר זה הנוס עצמך וכבודך. ואחר כך תראה לצדד לכאן ולכאן, אז השם יזברך יגיעך האמץ ותלך לבטח ודברי פי חכמכם. The Ramban told his son, sometimes in life, you may have a doubt how you should do something. There are perspectives that dictate you should follow this path. There are other perspectives that dictate you should follow another path. And you're in a dilemma. You're confused. There's uncertainty. You hit what we would call a fork in the road. Literally, there's two opposite paths, and you don't know what to do. Or you may have a doubt if something is a mitzvah or something is not a mitzvah. Should you do it or should you abstain from it? Not only that, sometimes you have a personal bias or agenda, you want to do something, and therefore your mind will manipulate you into thinking that this is actually a permissible thing to do, when really it's forbidden and destructive. Sometimes in life there is uncertainty. Do I go this way? Do I go that way? A decision I may have to make in terms of my marriage, with my family, with my business, with my employees, with myself, with my colleagues. What's the right thing to do? This way or that way? Is this the right thing? Is this a wrong thing? Is this actually a mitzvah? Or maybe my mind is playing games with me. Maybe I just have another agenda, and that is causing me to gravitate towards this position. What do you do? So the Ramban says to his son, you must be able to try to remove your personal bias from this. You have to get rid of the self-consciousness. He gives two examples, your joy and your ego, your glory. Can you get this out of the picture? That's how you have to think about it. You have to be able to lift yourself up from personal biases, from personal agendas, from my own personal entanglement with the issue. And he says, then Hashem will let you know the truth, and you'll be able to go with confidence in a certain path. Says the Baal Shem Tov, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling the Jewish people. This is what he means. Hadavar asher yikshe mikem she'einchem yodim eich la'asoyso limnoya hasafik noilad mikem sheyesh bo hana'aschem al kein tesalku midavar zana aschem ukvoidchem v'takrivun elai v'akavone she'yil l'shem shamayim b'li shum pniya v'ano ozu shemativ etem lo'yavone eich yisnaheg v'kalahav. This idea is intimated in the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. Hadavar asher yikshe. Sometimes there's a situation in life that imposes a lot of difficulties and uncertainty. You don't know what to do. Should I do it? Should I not do it? You know why? Because it's mikem. Because there's too many toxic entanglements here. There's a lot here. You have a lot of personal fears or agendas, conscious or unconscious, and they are creating this uncertainty. You can't see things clearly. So Moshe is not just telling them there is a difficulty. He explains why, because mikem. You cannot see it clearly. You have to free up the space. Right now, there is too much fog in your life. Fog, fear, obsession, guilt, whatever else you want to use for fog. But there's a lot of fog. You can't see the sun. You don't have clarity. What do? You have to be able to cultivate the courage of not taking this personally, of going to a place where you're trauma-free, stress-free, ego-free, agenda-free, insecurity-free. Get out of it. And Moshe says, Takrivun Elai. You have to be able to come close to me. What does it mean, come close to me? Moshe Rabbeinu is a servant of God. You have to be able to ask yourself, what does Hashem want from me at this moment? The question has to be, What does God want without other agendas and other perceived or delusional enjoyments, and therefore gains that I'm personally going to get from it? Then, Ushamativ, Moshe says, I'll be able to hear. I'll hear what you're saying. What's Ushamativ? I'll be able to imbue the person with the right thoughts and the right perceptions of how to live. Short teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. What does this mean in our life? What it means in our life is sometimes I'm in a situation and there's confusion. It's a painful situation. There's a dilemma. Again, it could be in your own life, your own future, your family, your relationships, relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your children, your relationship with somebody else in your family, relationship with somebody else. And you really have a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what to do. It's so important not to get personal and not to be able to take this personal. Your child tells you something. My child tells me something or doesn't tell me something. And I could become so personal. And there's now a personal vendetta or a personal issue. My security, my sense of confidence, my sense of macho-ness, my sense of fatherliness, my sense of manlyhood, whatever, has been damaged. And I make decisions from the wrong place because I'm living in the fog of my own personal pain. Is it possible for me to get out of this place? Don't take it personal. It's not about you. Sometimes when I'm living with inner stuff, inner garbage, everything becomes personal. I can't even see the reality from another person's perspective. I can't see the reality from a clear perspective. So the Baal Shem Tov says, Moshe is saying, you're going to know what to do, but the way for you to find out what to do is to really work on yourself and say, for example, with children, these are God's children. I was entrusted with the unique privilege of raising and polishing these diamonds. In another relationship that you have that may be difficult and turbulent, this is not about my own insecurities and my own egos. Can I extricate myself from that and be able to really, really tune in to the divine mission and the divine perspective at this moment? And then you free yourself up and you can take a path that brings you to your destination. It brings you to a very, very powerful place. And the reason is because you had the courage to be able to take yourself out from this type of fog. Just close the door, okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Could you bring me water? Could you bring me water? Thank you. It's not an easy thing. It takes a lot of courage. And here again, I want to mention Raizel. She was a person who struggled. I'm not only talking about the illness. She had various struggles in life. But one of her greatest virtues and her greatest attributes was she never allowed pettiness and various dysfunction that she observed internally or externally to define her. She allowed herself to dream big, to think with expansiveness, to operate with an expansive state of consciousness, to actually see herself as a divine ambassador in the world, to see herself as an agent of God's infinite love, and therefore not to get caught up in the natural insecurities and traumas and fears and toxicity and garbage and filth that skeletons and demons and ghosts that many of us, I don't want to say all of us, but many of us vibrate through our system. She can get out of the mikem and therefore out of the yiksha. Takrivun elai. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's water, yeah? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niya b'dvareh. And therefore, walk a path that was upbeat, that was positive, that was invigorating, and that brought radiance to her and to so many other people's lives. May her memory and soul continue to serve as a source of blessing and inspiration to all of you, to all of us, to the family that's here with us. I say, may God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. To Raizel's immediate family, I say we have no words, but you're in our thoughts, you're in our prayers. It's a very painful time. To Raizel's husband, Raizel's children, we know there are no words. We just pray that you have the strength, the resilience to be able to deal with the situation the best way possible. And I know that Raizel's light will continue to shine brightly in the heart and soul of each one of her 8 diamonds. I want to also thank everybody who contributed to the fund that was created for Raizel Zucker's family due to the financial difficulties and economic hardships. Thank you for all of those who donated. And I want to make a request and use this opportunity for those who did not, or even those who did, to increase your contribution for this special fund. Raizel Zucker, you could find it online. I thank you. And now I'm going to go to questions. So I'm opening up here the chat. We'll do the questions from the Zoom. If you want to write your questions, you can write your questions on the chat if you're on the Zoom. If you want to send your questions through the yeshiva.net, that's fine. You can come to the video page with Raizel Zucker's video, and you will see there is a place to ask your question, and I will, God willing, try to take as many questions as we can. So the first thing, let us go to the chat. I'm just opening it up here. Okay, chat. There's a question on the top. I don't see any questions. I'm sorry. Any questions here in the chat? Okay. I don't know who's organizing the Zoom. It says here there's a question on the top, but I don't see any question. Maybe you want to pose the questions so everybody could see, because I can't see now. You have to pose the questions for everybody to see. I'm not the host, so I will not be able to see the questions unless you post them all here. Okay. So post the questions. In the meantime, I'm going to go to the yeshiva.net questions so we could see what people have to say over there, okay? And then I'll come back here to the chat and take questions from the chat. Okay, wow. So somebody writes as follows. I watched this brave woman struggle with her illness the past year. Always a smile. That's true. Hashem should give Beryl, who himself with his siblings was orphaned of a mother at a young age, the strength to carry on and raise these children. Thank you to Chesky and Rachel Litzman, who opened their house to this family this past year in Muncie, or longer, packing into their home some 25 plus people. Yes, a big shout out to Chesky and Rachel Litzman here in Muncie, who did something incredible. Raizel should be a good to better for her family. Ask for Moshiach to come already so we could be swiftly rejoined. Very well, Reb Moshe. Thank you for sharing that. And now let's go to the chat. I see a few questions. Okay. Let me go to the top. Okay. There's a question. When a person passes away, does the neshama forget about his or her family and friends? So this is a very interesting discussion, and it's discussed a lot in the books. But according to many, many sources, the neshama does not forget. And even though this is debated, but the conclusion of most of the authorities in spirituality over the generations is that the neshama remains deeply connected to all of its loved ones. Not only does it not forget about its family and friends, but on the contrary, the soul rejoices and celebrates with its families and friends. When the soul sees the continuous life and joy and celebration of its loved ones, the soul celebrates. And conversely, the soul grieves with the pain of its family and friends. When a person passes away, next question, when the neshama comes back, does the neshama come back as all the previous lives they led? That's an interesting question. And the answer to that, according to Kabbalah, is that every neshama, when it comes back, it brings with itself a lot of the experiences that it had, including scars and wounds and blessings and accomplishments of previous reincarnations. And sometimes, yes, we carry things not even from our own life, but from previous lives. That's what makes life so interesting. And yet, the important thing to understand is that sometimes there will be things that in life, for you, they're pretty easy to achieve. For others, they're difficult. But there is something for you that is very hard to achieve. And that is usually one of the signs that this is one of the purposes why your soul came down. And that's why your negative inclination creates so much resistance. When a person, next question, how can I feel happy if things aren't going well? For example, people passing away, leaving a whole family behind, and unfortunately, many, many other sad things. How can anybody be happy? The answer to your question is silence, but I am going to say something. It depends how you define happiness. If you define happiness as just the feeling everything is dandy and I could just be frivolous without any responsibility and without anything sitting in me and without any concerns and without any duties, that's a whole different type of happiness. That's not real happiness. That's more frivolousness. Let me tell you what happiness is. Happiness is the deep knowledge that I am in the right place, in the right time, doing the right thing. It's that inner satisfaction and inner contentment and wholesomeness that comes from living a life of alignment. When I know that my life is aligned with my purpose, I am not intimidated by my fears. I don't surrender to mediocrity. I don't surrender to despair, pettiness, small-mindedness, egotism, and toxicity. But I remain aligned to my true purpose. And I know that where I am is exactly where I have to be. The place is right, the time is right, and now I can choose to do the right thing. That is an inner sense of connection and joy that can prevail and pervade us during all circumstances. As you should do as chapter 100 in Psalms, we say it every morning. Serving God is 24/7 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But some of those moments are not easy. Sometimes we're dealing with very difficult situations, sometimes with very sad situations. And yet that is also part of God's service. And over there, we also say there is joy, because joy doesn't necessarily mean there's no pain. Joy means there may be pain, but there is an inner conviction that I'm doing the right thing in these circumstances, that I am not being a victim, I am being a leader, that I am standing up to my responsibility. From this comes an inner sense of contentment and joy, even if I'm confronting a situation that's difficult. What are practical steps and ways you can take to live in the way we just learned, not taking it personally? Ooh, if you could give me an answer to this question, I'll be very grateful to you. You're asking a very profound question. How do you not take things personally in life? The answer for this is, it's very important when you wake up in the morning to meditate and pray for this. This is something you daven for. You have to tune in to your innermost core, your innermost soul, which is a part of divine infinity and which doesn't have to take things personally. My animal soul takes things personally because it feels threatened. It's like a little puppy that feels threatened and scared. So therefore, I have to take it personally, and I have to take revenge, and I have to get angry, and I have to lash out at you. But my godly soul is one with cosmic unity. My godly soul is aligned with infinite energy. I don't have to take it personally. I could come from a place of empowerment and strength, not because I don't care. I care very deeply, but my response is coming from my innermost values, not from my external impulses of pain. So if you could spend time every single morning meditating and praying and tuning into this part of yourself, it empowers you during the day to live a life in which you take things less personally and you really operate from a much more expansive consciousness. Excellent question. Can someone do a mitzvah l'schus another person who is not an ancestor? What we find in the Medrash, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, is with a son. Of course, when a child does something for a soul, it has special significance. But any person who does a mitzvah or says a prayer or learns or gives tzedakah for a neshama, it has a tremendous impact. And because remember, on a soul level, we're not strangers. As it says in Tanya chapter 32, we're brothers, we're sisters. All the souls are one. The bodies represent distinct manifestations of the soul, but our neshamas are one. We are organically connected. So when I do something for somebody else's soul, it's not even somebody else's soul. We are deeply interconnected and integrated. On that level, you're not a stranger. Of course, there's a special relationship with a son, a special relationship with a daughter, a special relationship with a sibling, a special relationship with a parent. No question about that. Esther asks a question. Is silence always good? And the answer is absolutely not. That's why I speak. If silence was always good, I wouldn't speak. Silence is sometimes bad. For example, when somebody observes abuse, injustice, cruelty, sadism, barbarity, silence is a crime. Silence in the face of evil is a crime. I become an accomplice to those who are afflicting pain on others if I am silent. Sometimes the only appropriate response is words, and loud words coming from the depth of my heart. I am referring in this lecture to silence that is grappling with the unknowable, with infinity. I'll tell you a very beautiful story. There was once a rabbi who came to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Rebbe requested from him to speak up about certain issues that were going on in his environment to be able to help the situation. So he quotes a statement in Gemara and Talmud, Mila besela, mishtuke betrain. A word is worth a selah. Selah was a significant currency. Let's say a word is worth $1. Silence is worth $2. He tells the Rebbe, I don't speak. Word is $1. Silence is double. And the Rebbe looked at him and said, that's true. That's true. But if you remain silent all day, you only make $2. If you speak all day, every word you make $1. And his point was, silence is much deeper than words. But sometimes the situation calls on you to speak, and speak out with honesty and with decisiveness and with fearlessness and resolve and determination. Why can't the family visit the resting place the first year? There are different reasons given for this. One of the reasons, if I recall correctly, I haven't looked this up in a while, so I'm speaking from a distant memory, so I may be mistaken here, but I think one of the reasons is that during the first year, you see, there's different stages in the soul's departure from this world. It's a very, very delicate and intricate process. That's why there's also different stages in mourning. There's the stage when the soul just left. Till burial, that's one stage. There is the stage after burial, the first 3 days. There is Shiva, 7 days. There's 30 days. there's 11 months, there's 12 months. Every stage of mourning parallels a certain journey of the soul. During the first year, the soul is still very deeply connected to the body and to the resting place, because it's still on this very, very powerful journey and transition from a tangible, concrete world into an intangible, transcendent world. And therefore, when the family comes, it creates an unnecessary anguish for the soul, which is still struggling with this transition from one world to another world. So it's respect to the journey of the soul. So that's why even if they go to the cemetery, they could come, but they remain a certain distance. I think it's Dalet Amos, around 6 or 7 feet from the grave. Can we communicate with the departed? When we want to share with the departed, do they hear us? Listen, we could communicate. Do they speak back to us? I'm not from the people who have such experiences, and I don't know about such experiences, and you have to be a little suspicious with these areas and be sensitive. But we could certainly communicate with them. That's why when we learn Mishnayos and I say this is for the neshama of this and this person, say Raizel, Taiba Raizel, Bas Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, or somebody else, this is a form of communication with the soul. So yes, we could communicate. When a soul like Raizel's comes down and enters our imperfect world, but is really too good for our world, it makes us nervous to be too good for our own good. How do we reconcile doing and being our best and our anxiety of being too good for our own good? I see you're a good person. This is a question from Shana. And the answer is, this is more anecdotal when we say, you know, God takes the good, don't be too good. Of course it doesn't work that way. Raizel was not taken from our world because she was a good person, because Raizel was not supposed to come down to our world, because Raizel was too good for our world. We don't know why Raizel was taken from us. Raizel's soul had a shlichus, it had a mission. We are saddened and broken that that mission ended much too soon from our perception. 39 years, and with such a beautiful family and a large family and such young kids. We have no words for it, but we don't know the reason. To be able to say it's because this person is too good, and this person is too righteous, and this person is too holy, who knows about these things? I don't think we have the ability and the know-how and the right to be able to say, you know, ooh, if you'll be bad, you'll live for a long time, and if you're good, you're going to die young. This has no, this doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have any source in Judaism or in the tradition of our heart. So you're not good because you're not bad because you're going to live long, and you're not going to avoid being good because you're afraid to die. I think that entire calculation doesn't make much sense. Look at it in a very different way. We are each here to serve. We are ambassadors of the divine in this world, and we have a mission, and I want to live my mission to the fullest, and you want to live your mission to the fullest. And our mission is to radiate light, our inner light, to the world around us, to bring unity into fragmentation, to reveal the oneness of divinity in our cosmos, to reveal the truth that we are all one. All the Jewish people are one. All of humanity is one. The entire universe is one. That is our job, and each one of us has the power to reveal that through our unique contribution. That should be our focus in life. I worry a lot about the kids. They behave best with their mother. Raizel really enjoyed putting her kids to sleep at night. She was the atmosphere in the house. Who will appreciate the kids? Who will enjoy the children like Raizel did? She understood them best. She so much inspired me. I worry about her children. I worry about them. She made sure they davened, they gave charity. The children had a special respect for her. They listened to her. I didn't see anyone with the same energy as her when they watched her children. And watching her children pains me. There is literally no substitute. Yeah. There is no substitute for a mother. There is no substitute for a mother. I don't have what to say. I'll tell you a line I once read in an article in my father's newspaper, the Allgemeine. Goldschmidt, it was a Yid, Rabbi Goldschmidt, some of you remember him. his father, Reb Moshe Goldschmidt, his mother, they were axed in the Chevron pogrom in 1929. He was a little kid, and his mother was dying in the hospital. And he said this years later. He said, my mother looked at me before her death, and she said, a mother doesn't live forever, but she also never dies. Those were, I think, the last words he heard from his mother. And the real question you bring up is, who's going to replace Raizel? And I don't have an answer. I don't know that anybody can replace. I think all of us, anybody who's close, anybody who can help, let's offer our help, but not through worrying and anxiety and just sitting in my house and kvetching. But if there's something concrete one can do to assist the husband, the father in this situation, and the other members of the family, yes, this is the moment to act and at least to try to do what we can do to help everyone according to their own capacity. This one can give a contribution, and this one can get involved in different ways, and this one can help with a home, and this one can help with other stuff. And here's my little advice to you, if I may, unsolicited advice. Often people come to a person in a difficult situation and they say, by the way, if you ever need help, call me. Now, what do you want a widower should do? Call you every Thursday and say, I'm overwhelmed. There's no food in the house. Somebody has to go to the doctor. Somebody has an earache. Somebody has a problem with his teeth. I need a dentist. Somebody else is having a stomach ache and somebody else has the flu. I'm talking about the other flu. What should I do? You think they're going to call you? Don't come to somebody in need and say, when you need help, call me. Tell them how you're going to help them and help them. Don't ask them, oh, when you need something, call me. They're not going to do that in most cases. So if you really want to help, let's help. Call the right people who are connected and help. And we have to remember, God calls himself the father of orphans, Avi Yisrael. There's a reason for it. There is something irreplaceable about a father and a mother. Those who lost fathers and mothers as young children will tell it to you. There's something irreplaceable. And God himself says, I know that. And I have to be the father of these orphans. And we hope and pray that these children who were given this difficult challenge will be able to find within themselves the light of their mother and the light of God to be able to build their lives in the healthiest, the most productive way. And every one of us in our own way has to be there to be able to support, not just in words and thoughts and wishes, but in real ways, in authentic ways. Let me just, these are the questions on chat. I don't see any other questions on chat. So if there are other questions, please put them in right now. I'm just going to check if there are any other questions that came in the other place. Okay. I would like to send charity. Please text me how. So the way to send charity for this family, you can go to charity.com. That's CHARIDY.com, charity.com/Zucker, ZUCKER, Zucker. So again, charity, www.charity.com, right? And then after that, /Zucker, ZUCKER. And over there, their name will come up, /23140, and you could donate. Next question. What should we do with our first fruits in modern times to sanctify them regarding the Omer? Well, this is another topic, and you could discuss this with your local Orthodox rabbi about the mitzvah of Bikurim, the way it applies nowadays. Generally, we need the Beis HaMikdash to bring Bikurim, although the Gemara does say that when you bring a gift to a Talmid Chacham, it is a concept of Bikurim. Okay, let's do another few questions here. Why are the Jews called the chosen nation if they weren't asked for the Torah first? Excellent question. The answer is because they are the choosing nation. More than being the chosen nation, they were the nation who chose. They're the choosing nation. Excellent question. What's the point of davening for people to feel better if we see that many people prayed so hard for Raizel and nothing happened? Someone who was so special and Hashem took her away from us. Great, great question. And I think it's very important to correct a misconception. Every prayer that a person prays for somebody has a tremendous impact in this world or in the next world. Sometimes we're praying for somebody who's very sick, and we pray and pray and pray, and God says no, and the person passes away. And we feel that all the prayers were in vain. It was like a waste of time, heaven forbid. You have to know that that is a mistaken conception. Every prayer that you ever share and utter for the sake of a human being and a soul has an incredible, powerful impact. Prayer changes reality. Prayer brings down flow into the world. Sometimes the prayer is effective in this world. Sometimes the prayer benefits the soul in its journey to the next world. But every single prayer for Raizel has a very powerful impact on her soul that she is very aware of and those who are connected to her soul, even though the prayers were not answered the way we wanted them, which is true. Next question, very good questions. Wouldn't it make sense that the lead up to Moshiach be positive, since there is nothing more positive than Moshiach? That would be great if everything leading up to Moshiach would only be positive, yeah. But sadly, in the world that leads to Moshiach, there's a lot of positive and there's also a lot of pain. You're right. What about the silence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He's the most silent. We say it every day. Mi chamoicha ba'elim Hashem. Who is like you, powerful one like God? And the Gemara says in Yuma, Elim is like the word Elam, which means mute. You know, on Zoom, mute, unmute, mute, unmute. Elam is a mute. Mi chamoicha ba'elim Hashem. Who is as mute as you, God? Who knows how to remain silent? Like Hashem. Because Hashem is really the source of everything and the energy of everything. And yet, he puts a lock on his lips. He remains disguised, silent, concealed, and allows himself even to be perceived as absent, even though he is the one responsible for that perception that he's absent. That's also from him. God is the ultimate silent one, the ultimate silent one. And that's the point. You're touching something very deep. Our silence is the way to connect to God's silence. Our expressions could connect to God's expressions. But what allows us to connect to God's silence, to God's inner core, which is not manifested because it's silent. It's only our own silence. You explained the stages of a soul's journey up until the 12 months point. I guess they're completely connected to the other world. Do they feel less connected to their children and family? Is it harder for the family to access and connect to the neshama after a 12-month point? Excellent question. And the truth is, I would say that it demands from all of us to go into a higher place ourselves. Because since the neshama goes through its own elevation, and after 12 months, the journey is drastically changing, so the connection always remains. But in order to be able to facilitate this connection, it behooves us to also allow ourselves to be elevated somewhat. And the more elevated we are, the more we can facilitate this relationship. But certainly the soul remains connected after 12 months and after 12 years. A father is always a father. A mother is always a mother. A loved one is always a loved one. And souls remain connected. But in this world, I want to be able to uplift myself and elevate myself to be able to tune in somewhat to the elevation of the soul. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said that if 10 people actually wanted Mashiach, then he would come. Aren't there more than 10 people now who truly want Mashiach? Why isn't he here? If I recall the Rebbe's talk accurately, the 28th of Nisan, 1991, the Rebbe said, may it be the will of God, mihi ratzon, that there should be from among you 10 people who will truly and tenaciously and stubbornly affect God's mind to bring Moshiach. So there's two things. First of all, about those 10 people, I don't know. I'm not the judge to know the levels of people's hearts. But the Rebbe would always say that the reason Mashiach did not come, he cannot understand. I heard this from the Rebbe himself. The Rebbe said, I don't know why Mashiach did not come. It's long overdue. Kolu kolakitz. There's a reason completely beyond me. He said, according to Torah's wisdom, it's a phenomenon that is so enigmatic. Why did the Geula not come yet? It was a mystery of the divine that the Rebbe himself conceded that he doesn't understand. So you have to understand that the only one who knows and decides when Mashiach is coming is Hashem himself. How do you get rid of negative chatter in our head? How do we stay connected to Hashem 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when sometimes life gets overwhelming? Good question. Raizel would have enjoyed these questions very much. The answer to you is, we can't always get rid of the negative chatter in our head. What we could do is quarantine the negative chatter in our head. I can't always get rid of the negative chatter, but I can put it in context. Instead of it defining me, I define it, which means instead of the negative chatter ruling my life, I can give it respect and allow it to be, but not let it take over my life. An example, backseat driver. You ever driving a car and there's a backseat driver who tells you, take the light, take the light, take the light. The guy doesn't know how to drive and he's driving you crazy. You have three options. Option number one is you throw him out of the car. Problem is you can't. Okay. Option number two is you give him the steering wheel. That's a disaster. He'll get into an accident. Option number three is you know that he's a backseat driver. He has ideas and you are holding on to the steering wheel. We are the rulers of our life. Every morning, spend time in prayer and meditation in which you connect to your inner core, to your inner values, to your inner soul. That will not get rid of the chatter, but what it will allow you to do is that throughout the day when the chatter comes, you don't give it the steering wheel. You remain in the car in the driver's seat. Should one fear death? Fagi wants to know, should one fear death? And what do you think I'm going to answer you? Learn from Raizel. It's not a way to live when you're fearing death. We should not fear death. We must be able, I said we must. Isaac Bashevis Singer, the famous Yiddish writer, once said, he says, we have to believe in free choice. We got no choice. And I'm going to say to you, you can't live a life in which you're constantly fearful of death. It's not a way to live. And it's not a way to die either. It's not how to live. We are always in God's hands. Every moment of life is a miracle. I mean, if I would have told you 3 months ago, if I would have told you Hanukkah time, by the way, you know that this year, at some point, all your kids are going to come home and every school in the world is going to close down and every shul is going to close down and most businesses are going to close down, and you would look at me and you would declare me officially insane unless there's a third world war or some, God forbid, nuclear, atomic war. And it happened. It happened through an invisible virus. An invisible virus shut down the whole world, brought 7.7 billion people to its knees. What this tells us is, don't take any day for granted. You could be perfectly healthy. Don't take it for granted. Every moment we are in the loving embrace of Hashem. The question is not if we're vulnerable or not. The question is if we admit it to ourselves or not. We are always vulnerable. Toila Eretz al Blima. You know how vulnerable this planet is? You know how many things have to go right in order for us to be able to breathe in oxygen? Do you know how many things have to go right for us to be able to have light, for us to be able to have heat, for us to be able to have warmth? Do you know how many things have to go right for us to be able to have water, for us to be able to have the gases that we need, for us to be able to have produce? Do you know how many, not 10 things, not 100 things, not 1,000 things, how many millions, billions, trillions things have to go right in the whole planet, and never mind in your own body. In your own body, you need 75 trillion cells to be functioning for everything to go right. How exactly does this happen? We are always vulnerable. Every single moment of life, we are absolutely vulnerable. The question is, do I admit it or do I not admit it? And does that cause me fear? or it actually causes me a very deep joy. That's a choice that we make in our attitude. When you realize how vulnerable you are, you could do one of two things. You can either surrender to this despair and fear and tension and anxiety, or you can actually surrender to God's infinite and loving embrace and seize every moment and celebrate every day. And that's what I would suggest, Fagi, for you to do to the best of your ability. Does a person consciously experience after death so they know what's happening? The soul experiences, the soul knows. In fact, the consciousness of the soul is far more acute than our consciousness, because our consciousness is very limited by the physical experience of the body. The consciousness of a soul is actually infinite. So the soul is deeply aware in ways that are even profounder than our understanding of consciousness. Can the neshama feel pain? Chana Rachel wants to know. Yes, a soul feels pain and a soul feels joy. Zalman, why are the mirrors covered in a Shiva house? I don't remember. I don't remember. I saw a reason. I have to research it. If you email me, I'll look it up. You can email me rabbiyyy@theyeshiva.net. rabbiyyy@theyeshiva.net, because I don't remember the answer now. I am so grateful for that analogy of the backseat driver. Brilliant. Okay, I think we'll take two more questions and we'll move on, right? Is that fine, Rabbi Friedman? We could take two more questions. Okay. Whew, wow. Here we go. Yered, with the resurrection of the dead, we have outstanding prophecies about, will all who merited Olam Haba be resurrected? Wouldn't the Jews and Israelites end up outnumbering the Gentiles? Well, the Avodas HaKodesh writes that resurrection applies also to pious Gentiles. That's what the great Kabbalist Reb Meir ben Gabbai writes. Rivka, are illnesses or misfortunes a consequence of our misdoings or actions? The answer to that is, this is a very, very loaded topic, and we don't always know. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. When I go and daven at a person's grave, I'm almost embarrassed. I feel like they can see through us, and perhaps I'm doing stuff in my life incorrectly. I feel like they fulfilled their purpose. They're so pure, and I have not yet. Please, can Rabbi YY comment on this? Yeah, there's something very humbling when you go to the resting place of somebody in a cemetery. And the answer to that is not to go. I think the answer is to really be able to make an honest reckoning of how we are living our lives on a daily basis. I am grateful for the message, but there's no way to wrap ourselves around many of the things that are happening in our world, sickness, suffering. Thank you for not trying to explain when there's no obvious explanation. I guess it's God knows what he's doing. Thank you for the message. Beautiful. Yeah, very well. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions in chat, and I'm going to wish you a good night. The hour is a little late. Okay, where's our chat here? Here we go. Okay. How Zalman stumped the rabbi. Okay, shout out for Zalman for stumping the rabbi. Excellent. Next. Okay, you are a real star. Okay, share that with my mother-in-law. Thank you, Rabbi. We learned so much. Thank you. How do you feel more connected with the Rebbe? A connection with the Rebbe, you feel connected with the Rebbe when you become the type of person the Rebbe taught us to be. I think that's the deepest way to feel connected to the Rebbe. When you become that manifestation of those ideas and teachings that the Rebbe embodied in his life and taught to anybody who wished to listen. How does Moshiach feel like? You mean, how will Mashiach's coming feel like? It's going to feel awesome. I'm sitting here with one of your biggest fans, my mother. We're grateful that you took the time to honor my cousin. Hope you continue teaching. Thank you very much. And welcome, Rebbetzin Sharfstein. It's an honor to have you. Thank you for your beautiful tribute. Okay. I also want to welcome Raizel's immediate family, many of them who are here. The Muchkin family. I don't know if her parents are on, but I know that siblings, I see some of the siblings are on. I also see Rabbi Shalom Ber, Zucker's father, is with us, and I want to welcome him. I also want to welcome all of the many relatives who are here, and all of the many friends who are here, and everybody who's here. It was a very moving tribute, and I am thankful for the schus to be able to share these ideas and feelings with you. I send you all my deepest love and prayers and blessings. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. May we all be here for each other, and may we emerge from this deeper, wiser, more blessed, more loving. May we operate on a level of consciousness which always sees the infinite love embedded in each of us and the infinite unity that always and forever connects us to each other, to Raizel, and to all of the Jewish people. My dearest friends, I love you and I bless you with bracha and atzlacha. May we hear good news from each other. May we hear good news on all fronts. May God give strength and solace and comfort to all those who need it, recovery to all those who need it, and may we very, very speedily experience that moment when the silence will be transformed into the infinite revelation of that which today we can't see, we can just be silent about, but that silence will be transformed into the infinite revelation as a new dawn descends upon our world with our ultimate and universal redemption through Moshiach Tzidkenu. May it happen very, very speedily in our days. Thank you and good night. So, Hi.